New year, new look channel, and new background. But as is every year when it comes to us Eurovision fans, we enjoy the spectacle and entertainment every single year, no matter where it'll end up next. And no matter whether you're a casual or a die-hard fan, we keep the interest going every single year with millions upon millions of people watching all around the world, never mind in Europe. After all, without the fans, there would be no contest. But let's face it, it does need to be organised first. Primarily this is down to the thousands of men and women of whichever broadcaster is hosting to come up with the job of producing lights, cameras and plenty of action for about 4 and a bit hours of Saturday night entertainment. But primarily this is also down to the hundreds of men and women that work at the European Broadcasting Union. And while it's primarily a team game to make sure things go smoothly with its production, schematics and of course the final voting procedure, every ship needs its captain. And that's all down to the executive supervisor of the European Broadcasting Union. And in this video, we're now going to be talking about the kind of rather infamous position of this, position, and more specifically, the current, or going to be ex in August, supervisor of the competition, Martin Österdahl. And yes, it will be primarily about him towards the end. We will be speaking about also the role of what it entails, as well as going through the history of who exactly filled that said role. So without any further ado, roll those brand new titles. Good morning, afternoon, evening everybody. My name is Jamie and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. If you haven't seen me before, then first of all, hi. And secondly, if you would like to see more of my Eurovision juicy goodness, you can of course subscribe to my channel so you never miss a single video, and of course ring the bell to get notified about my latest videos so you never miss an upload or indeed live stream for that matter. And without all that shenanigans out the way, let's firstly speak about what exactly is involved in the job description, specifically of being the executive supervisor for the European Broadcasting Union. According to the official Eurovision website, the role primarily involves overseeing the preparation and organisation of the contest on behalf of the EBU. Together with their team, they provide the main point of contact for over 40 participating EBU members and are in charge of the operation on their behalf, ensuring the contest is delivered annually by the host broadcaster in accordance with the contest rules. It's not just organising the fact that every single part of the voting procedure needs to be a full and valid result, it also needs to make sure that every single nook and cranny of organising the contest is fully going according to plan. Every year there is always a cycle of things to do in which a large part are quite repetitive, but they are necessary to produce a good quality week of shows. To begin with, they oversee the host country on how it's going to select its host city and in turn selecting the correct venue for said host city. After all, you need the right amount of people to turn up to the venue, not just the millions of people watching at home. You need that concert atmosphere, you know what I'm saying? But of course, it's not just the spectators they've got to look after, they've also got to cater for each and every single delegation and their act that turn up to the venue. And of course, to make sure that all songs participating are legal, to say the least. Then, once all of that is sorted, it is on to liaising with the production company of the host broadcaster to oversee the various technology on hand to make sure that the live broadcast of each show is slick, sufficient and of extremely good quality. Once all of that is set up, it is time for Eurovision week itself. During this time, it'll be down to the executive supervisor to liaise and indeed, supervise with all of the acts and the delegations themselves to make sure A, they turn up for rehearsals on time, B, to make sure they are happy and satisfied with each of their performance and they're being catered for in the process, and C, making sure they are safe and secure in their working environment and adhering to the code of conduct. This is a piece of legislation that quite literally, quote, protects the integrity of the Eurovision Song Contest. More on that later. Now let's have a look at the previous men and women that have garnered the position over the last 70 years nearly, jeez. According to the records, there have been only 12 people that have actually done the role since the contest first began. I'm not going to cover the first 3 since they are quite, irrelevant to this particular video, but in case you're interested in who they are, it's these people here. The first primary person to mention is Clifford Brown, a Scottish TV producer who held the role for 11 years between 1966 to 77. His significant contribution towards the competition was making sure to oversee the various changes in the voting sequence towards the end of the contest. In fact, his role as far as the voting procedure is concerned was so important, there were a total of 4 different sets of voting procedures during his tenure, with the final 2 years of his time coming from the current voting system that we all know and love today. That's the 1 to 8, 10 and 12 points, in case you need a reminder. However, it was during this time between 1971 to 1973 that he oversaw one extremely bizarre voting procedure. Instead of the usual 5 jurors or 10 jurors, as was a regular occurrence back then because juries only after all, there would instead only be 2 jury members, one that was over 25 and one that was under. And the best part of it all, they had to turn up for the competition itself and be shown on television. I mean, talk about pressure, you know what I mean? They would each give a score of 1 to 5 based on which particular country they liked the most. As of course countries son, like, you know, not particular country, although try telling that to Portugal and Spain. So naturally it led to some sort of, you know, convenient sets of voting, shall we say. I mean, it was kind of fair to a certain degree, and it guaranteed that not a single country would get nul point after all. For example, say 16 countries participated in the contest, a minimum amount set of points that one particular country could get would be 38 points. But honestly, where's the fun in that when there's no nul point? Also, he was the individual that oversaw the famous, well, rather infamous 4-way tie of 1969, where he had to say in front of millions of viewers around Europe that 4 countries were the winners on the same night.
Yo voy a pedir por favor a Mr. Brown que sea él quien me diga exactamente los vencedores de este año.
No ha pasado nunca.
Il y a en effet 4 gagnants cette année.
El representante de la Unión Europea.
Oof. I personally don't have an issue with him since he's British and everything. Next up, and one definitely for the elder viewers as far as Eurovision fans are concerned. Well, me included, but although that being said, I'm 34, though 34 is not that old Gen Zs and Gen Ys, so shut the up. But yes, this guy was arguably the goat of them all. Enter Frank Neff. The Swiss-born TV producing legend oversaw a long and tenured and various changing time between 1978 to 1992. But to be honest with you, he was probably one of the most perfect men to have in the job, or person rather, shall we say, these days. But honestly, he was so brilliant in the fact that he was calm, relaxing, and was very much a professional persona whenever you saw him being introduced as the executive supervisor, especially during 1985.
I expect that was guitars on. Oh, they've got a knockabout sense of humour, the Swedes, haven't they? Oh, look! Hey. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, that must have got him hot under the collar, eh? But regardless, he was a person you could really trust with the procedural voting and indeed the organisation of the contest every single year. This was especially true during the penultimate year of his reign of the 1991 contest held in Rome, Italy. If you thought Italy hosting it in 2022 was a little bit of a mess, or indeed 2024 in general for that matter, you really haven't heard of 1991. Which, fun fact, I was born that year! Originally, the host area and indeed venue of the competition for 1991 was to have it in the same venue as that of the Sanremo Music Festival. The main reason being is that they wanted to pay homage and tribute to the fact that Eurovision was a massive influence in regards to the Sanremo Song Festival. But there was just one little tiny problem with that. And that was the size of the venue would have meant very few spectators would have attended the entire event, and it would have just been not a very good atmosphere entirely, aside from the odd, you know, loud Italian here and there. Plus, it was kind of cramped for just a Eurovision event. After some back and forths, they eventually decided on giving up on that particular idea entirely and ended up in a TV studio in Rome. Yes, a TV studio. And that's with no less than 5 months to go in terms of planning. You should go check out the original broadcast itself because the venue, quite frankly, looked a complete mess. The production wasn't its usual slick self, and the presenters all the way through the program only spoke in Italian, not one word of English or French. Not exactly ideal if the majority of the European audience couldn't exactly understand it. Honestly, props to Frank because he had a massive job on his hands throughout the voting procedure and certainly appeared to not like the way one of the hosts, Tuto Cutugno, who so happened to have won the whole entire thing the year before, God rest his soul by the way, in the way he was conducting himself throughout the whole entire competition. And indeed the cringe introduction he gave to the UK's Samantha Janus.
Samantha,
Janus!
Honestly, props to Frank for having a calm head throughout it. No wonder he's a legend. Next up was Danishman Christian Clausen, who oversaw the hat-trick of Irish hostings between 1993 to 95. Though I guess he's Danish since there's not really that much information about him, but with a name like that, it's got to be at least somewhere in Scandinavia, am I right? But yeah, if you know any information about him, let me know in the comments. He didn't really say or do that much to sort of influence the contest a little bit, other than the fact that he was just sort of there when he was introduced, and let's just say he was Ireland's lucky charm for 3 years. Then after that time, it was the turn of, quite literally, girl power. Ironically, starting in 1996, it went all the way to 2003, where a string of female executive supervisors oversaw proceedings. Starting with French woman Christine Marchal Ortiz, who presided the 1996 edition in Oslo, Norway, and then also 98 to 2002. What's even more memorable was that in 1996, she oversaw the first time ever of a pre-qualifier event. Again, that needs a separate video for a separate time. But she was also ultimately responsible for the modernization of the contest, as we now come to love and know, whereby fans just go crazy and flags wave galore. Gone were the days of posh nights with men in tuxedos and females in ball gowns. It's just wear whatever the hell you want and go crazy like it's, well, any year really. And if you ask me, I always find it a wholesome moment whenever the fans just wave a flag, but well, their particular flag where they come from, no matter who is singing, so as long as they enjoy the song. I thoroughly love that, honestly. But I briefly forgot to mention 1997, where it was actually oversaw by Marie-Claire Vionnet. But again, there's not much information on her either, other than the fact that she was always the main assistant to Frank Neff during the 80s. For 2003, though, the role very briefly went to another British person. Though that might not have been a good omen considering what happened to the UK in 2003's results. That went to Sarah Ewan. She was originally part of producing regional television in the United Kingdom before heading up to Hong Kong for just a few years and then ended up back to France to briefly own a hotel of all things. But then got bored and then went back to TV roles and then ended up subsequently working for the EBU. Though she did have, of course, the fortunate job when she was introduced by the presenters to signify that there will be 2 Eurovision Song Contests next year, a semi-final and a grand final. Alas, she was the last of the female kind before the role eventually went back to being a man's world again. But during the Eastern European invasion of 2004 to 2010, give or take a Nordic victory here and there, this time was held by Swedish journalist, or former Swedish journalist, Stig Svante Stockselius. Though with a surname like Stockselius, I honestly thought he was Greek for many years, so please forgive me about that. Understandably, he was given the role after working for so many years in the light entertainment industry on SVT during the late 90s. And yes, he was also part of the production, specifically executive producer of the 2000 edition of its national final, Melodifestivalen. And he also helped organise massive changes to said national final for the 2002 edition, when it went straight from one ordinary final to multiple semi-finals before the final. Without him, we probably wouldn't have had Melfest to how we know and love today. And especially the fact that he was able to handle the block voting pressure that was being put under him regarding of how Eastern European countries were starting to sort of all of a sudden do really well on the scoreboard, especially in 2007. That's good amount of, pressure handling if you ask me. Especially after all of the fireworks and so much shouting later, he introduced the now famous 50-50 split rule of juries and televoters in 2009. But for the majority of the teen decade, where you and I know the contest famously for most, that role would actually be taken up by a Norwegian person in the form of Jan Ola Sand. He was given the role in 2011 after Norway hosted it, due to him having previously been the head of the Norwegian delegation, no less, between 1998 to 2005. And like Svante, he also co-produced and indeed solely produced the editions of Melodi Grand Prix, its national final, for many years as well. Most of the time, whenever he was mentioned, he always looked like he was nervous when he was about to start speaking, but most of the time he was quiet and astute in his professional tone when it came to the role in general. Highlights of his career included trying to curb the wave of booing that was given to Russia in the 2014 edition and 2015 one as a result of the government's invasion of Crimea. But unlike a certain someone who we've already mentioned before, he actually coped with it pretty well and thankfully didn't get booed himself. Though maybe a slight blop on his career would come in the form of the 2014 competition, where during one of the rehearsals of the grand final, he decided to try his luck on producing a bit of harmony between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which didn't actually go down well, at least not according to the Azerbaijani spokesperson anyway. During rehearsals, you can pretty much make up the points to go along as you see fit, just to make sure that the hosts know exactly what they're doing when it comes to the actual competition, just in case for any, unforeseen circumstances. I'm just going to play the clip because it just needs to be watched.
The 8-point go to Greece.
I'm so sad to say that it is not correct.
10-point go to
Azerbaijan, the land of fire.
Norway.
We have to have your 8 points again, please, because it is not correct.
Our 10-point goes to Greece.
Azerbaijan, I repeat, we need your 8 points again because they're not correct.
Sorry, our 8 points goes to Greece.
I'm so sorry, Azerbaijan, but we need to move on. Jon-Ole, can you help us with the points from Azerbaijan?
Yes, indeed I can. Seems to be a little error, but I can read out the point from Azerbaijan. 8 points go to Armenia.
Other than that, though, he was probably the first person in history to cover all but one of the contests which he was supposed to do, not including, of course, the 2020 contest for obvious reasons. But the most famous thing he ever did was introduce a catchphrase. As soon as he told all the audience at home that there was a full and valid result, he said the words,
"Take it away, take 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 it away."
And let's face it, you knew you were in safe hands with Mr. Sandy Sand. Finally now, we come to the point of the video on who this primarily is all about. For only the second time in its history, the role was reserved for a Swede. But alas, it's going to be ending up as a career that ended up being one big damp squid you will ever see in your life. And that, of course, is Martin Österdahl. Boo! The Eurovision equivalent of going from one of the poster boys of the whole entire competition to how to lose friends and alienate people. But I do genuinely want to start off on the positives on this one. Since his humble beginnings of taking over the Junior Eurovision Song Contest in 2020 in Warsaw, Poland, not the Rotterdam Adult Contest, that particular contest of the Junior one specifically was a bit of a headache in question because at the end of the day, we were still getting used to ye old pandemic. So having to adhere to so many pandemic rules regarding the whole entire competition of making sure 8 to 14-year-olds would meet up for crying out loud is actually not a bad introduction, and a good one at that, in order to make sure you know you're in safe hands to certain degrees, you know what I'm saying? Biti stava. I mean, at the end of the day, the contest did take place in December as well, so yeah, props to make sure that nobody got the actual virus, you know? At least not to my knowledge, anyway. Of course, it was only obvious he was going to have a catchphrase himself for the whole entire thing. And instead of
"Take it away,"
we now had
"You're good to go." And you're good to go. It's good to go. You're good to go.
However, it was the jury results of the 2022 Eurovision Song Contest that actually gave him some well-earned respect and indeed admiration by the fan base. That year, along with the EBU reference group, he discovered that 6 countries were found to have irregular voting patterns and appear to have voted for each other, more than any other country in question during the results of the second semi-final. Because of this, those particular results were replaced by an aggregate score which was calculated from the results of other countries with similar voting records for not only the second semi-final but the grand final as well. Because of this newfound love and respect that he got because of actually discovering a little bit of dodginess with the jury voting, there were even fans chanting his name when the whole entire shebang came to Liverpool in 2023.
Good evening.
They love you, Martin. They love you.
Yes.
Especially when the contest came to Sweden, SVT themselves were gearing up for this whole newfound wave of love and, admiration he got by introducing a special skit for him for the 2024 grand final. However, there would be 2 major things for the 2024 competition that would all of a sudden make good hard work and admiration and respect and all the rest of it come completely crashing down to earth. Because of the Israeli government's subsequent actions after the tragedy of the 7th October attacks of 2023, where there's been so many stories about absolute genocide from the Gaza Strip in general, there have been many fans for a few years now calling on Israel to actually be banned from the Eurovision Song Contest entirely. Virtually in the same way that Russia should be banned for that unprovoked attack on Ukraine after all. But alas, the EBU, for whatever reason, don't see it that way. And to be fair to the EBU, you kind of can understand it, since at the end of the day, Israel weren't attacked first. I know the Israeli government aren't exactly saints either at this point, as we've already established, but hey, you know my stance on that by now, so let's just move on. Because of this, the EBU more or less will be taking the safer option going forward regarding Israel's participation. So as long as they, didn't take advantage of the situation or send any political songs or anything. Well, throughout our national final season of 2024, there was a constant back and forth between Khan, its broadcaster, and the EBU regarding their particular entry for Eden Golan, which was originally titled October Rain. But due to the obvious connotations and certain back and forth bits later, including involvement from the Israeli Prime Minister and President, eventually the song was called Hurricane. But if you thought the drama was over, you are so wrong. Let me introduce you to the date of 10th of May 2024. That particular date was in infamy because of an alleged incident that took place after the second semi-final performance regarding the Dutch representative Joost Klein and a certain camera person working on behalf of this SVT, the host broadcaster. In a nutshell, what basically happened, or the alleged incident for that matter, is that the camera person for SVT got a little too close for comfort for Joost Klein, which he specifically requested he did not want. And as a result, Joost then attacked or punched, or whatever word you want to call it, to said camera person in question. As a result, the camera person in question then filed a complaint to the EBU. After so many rumours and back and forths and all the rest of it, it was eventually announced that Joost Klein would not participate in the final and got disqualified. I'm not going to get into further details of the incident by now because most of us practically know what has happened at this point. Although it's still, let's face it, alleged after all. There were so many details that were hazy and rumoured at that point that it just kind of got a little bit out of hand, so to speak. But primarily, the scapegoat, as far as the fans is concerned, was the EBU. And while I totally get the fans' frustration at the time, since I was kind of like, WTF about it myself, we do have to hark back to what I said at the start of this video regarding the so-called code of conduct. Because of the fact that Israel were allowed to compete and really benefit from the amount of publicity and promotion that they actually did with their song, trust me, there was a lot. And you had the fact that there were so many rumors in regards to Israel not exactly conducting themselves very properly throughout the entire week. And then you had just the one incident that came from a fairly innocuous position, if you ask me, regarding just one particular artist for one particular incident to then all of a sudden get disqualified. You then got quite the massive backlash from the fans. And since he was the face of the whole entire kit and caboodle, since he was always mentioned every time the results were good to go, he got royally booed twice during the voting procedure. First time when he was firstly introduced, and second time when he was the spokesperson for the Dutch jury votes.
Executive Supervisor Martin Österdahl, what can you tell us about the result?
Yeah, good evening.
But if you ask me, I've never felt any proper reason to actually boo him per se. Maybe the reference group and the actual company, and indeed the director for that matter, but not really Martin. In my opinion, while I do agree that the EBU could and maybe should have handled the whole entire situation regarding both Israel and indeed the Netherlands for that matter properly and much better. Although let's face it, as far as the whole Dutch situation is concerned, we haven't actually seen any proper evidence, but that's by the by. But as far as the Dutch situation is concerned, they pretty much had limited time on deciding exactly what they wanted to, how to conduct the whole entire thing. And they just pretty much chose the safe option again. After all, protecting the safety and security is part of the code of conduct in its original guise and its updated format too. After all, who's to say if Joost did actually punch someone, who to say he would, never do it again or actually do it again. Besides, I do feel that Martin was kind of dealt a bit of a bad hand in all of this. Hear me out, everybody, before you start commenting. Ultimately, he didn't actually have the final say deciding Joskelin's fate when it came to the competition and indeed Israel competing. That would actually fall down to the EBU director, Noel Curran, and indeed the EBU reference group, who has previously defended Israel's inclusion in the contest throughout the entirety, especially during the whole, selection of the song debacle. Because of the whole entire mess, I am partially relieved that maybe Martin is going to be leaving, since at the end of the day, he needed to take time out for a long time. I think most of us fans should actually just cut in some slack a little bit. After all, how would you feel if you were put in a position where the EBU are trying to solidly defend a particular country that is not exactly, lighting the world on fire politically at the moment, while simultaneously dealing with an incident that only you know about and nobody else does? Seriously, how would you feel if you had that amount of pressure? I know I would bottle it. But yeah, it's certainly a rise and a fall of epic proportions when it comes to, well, any hierarchical role, never mind something that's going to be the face of the entire bloody program. But regardless, the job will be vacant from the end of August, and honestly, good luck to whoever will be taking the reins of that, because right now is a little bit of a infamous position, to say the least, especially when you got Israel right there in terms of a major topic point for 2026. And of course, you've also got the potential change of voting procedure when it comes to the televoting, and plenty of other things to talk about. Honestly, to whoever he or she may be who will take over the role first, I'm just going to be saying this to you: good luck. And that about does it for this particular video on my take of the role in question of EBU Executive Supervisor and, of course, Martin Österdahl. And genuinely speaking, yeah, I do wish him the best. Honestly, I do wish him the best, but yeah. I mean, the ending of this video is awkward enough as it is. Let's just get on with the ending, shall we? And before I do, of course, end this video, I would, of course, encourage you guys, as always, to subscribe to my Eurovision YouTube channel, because I'll be making more Eurovision juicy content all throughout the summer, and, of course, covering the Junior Eurovision Song Contest, which isn't too far away. And, of course, reading about again notified about my latest videos, and smash the like button on this video for good measure. And without any further ado, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.